Hi everybody, this video is to help introduce you to ArcGIS Pro, which is one of the main types of software we'll be using in landscape ecology this semester. And so we're working from my home, live from my home desktop. ArcGIS Pro is just one type of software that does GIS or geospatial analyses. There are others like QGIS and GRASS and some others, and each has its pros and cons. But if you learn one, you'll readily be able to use any of the others. And currently, ArcGIS Pro is the gold standard in the field, which is why I cover it in this class. So first off, let me share my screen here. And okay, do that. Okay, so the first thing you're going to want to do is go to the course Google Drive, and you'll see the folders here and lab materials. You're going to want to follow along with this lesson, the ArcGIS Pro Primer. You can download it here with this little icon. This is just a Word document, and I'm not going to be going through all of this primer today, but it includes some of the stuff that I'll be doing today. And so you're going to want to download all of this material to a desktop folder that you create called Landscape Ecology with no spaces in it. This is something that we have covered in the first lab, but in case you need a refresher about, what does this mean? So here's my desktop, and I right click and I say new folder and call it Landscape Ecology, if I can spell, with no spaces, no symbols, nothing funky. And then this is the folder where you will download all the materials from the course Google Drive for lab. You'll work from this folder. So download everything to this, okay? So I've already done this, so I don't need this folder, so goodbye. All right, so anyway, this is what we'll be doing. Okay, then you'll have to create an ArcGIS Pro account. Texas Tech has a license with ArcGIS that allows us to use their software for free. And so in the online notes, I have this website. You go to it, and there will be something up here that says sign in. Obviously, I am already signed in. But you'll click on that, and then you'll use your E-Rater credentials to create an account. And then that's what you'll use. And you only need to do that once. And do this at least a week before that lesson in lab, because that way if there's any problems, you have time to get them resolved, okay? So you only need to do this once. You create this account. Okay, great. Now, the desktops in the classroom and ones in the library already have ArcGIS Pro installed. If you want to install the software on your home computer, then again in the notes I have a URL, a website that you can go to where you can check and see if your computer actually can run, if it has enough RAM and so forth, okay? And so you would verify your computer's ability to run ArcGIS Pro. ArcGIS, Esri products work on Windows machines. If you're using an Apple product like a Mac, you go over here, it says run ArcGIS Pro on a Mac. You're going to need to use like a virtual system, and that's going to need to be a pretty powerful desktop. And so it's possible if you have a Mac, but in general, this is a Windows-based product, okay? So now let's assume that you want to download it to your home computer. Your home computer can run it, great. And so then what you do is you go to your account. So you've come here and you've signed in. So here's my account. You go to my settings over here, and then you go to licenses. And I've already got this installed on my computer, but you would scroll down and say ArcGIS Pro, download ArcGIS Pro. And then you would just follow the prompts and install it on your machine, okay? Then once you've got it installed, or even if you decide, I don't need this at home, or my computer isn't going to be powerful enough to run it, it doesn't matter. Everybody, again, I have the URL in the notes for today. There's this nice little quick video that talks about what ArcGIS Pro can do. So it's pretty cool. So take this for a spin. It'll familiarize you with the kinds of things that ArcGIS Pro can do. Okay, now let's actually get started. I already have it installed on my home computer, and so I click to open, and then this is sort of what it will look like when you open ArcGIS Pro. You'll be signed in up here, okay? And these are all the things that I've been working on, la-di-da. You won't have anything like this, but this top ribbon up here, this is what you'll see. And so you start a new file with map. So you click on this and it'll prompt you to give it a name and to save it somewhere. The default is not where I would want to save this. Okay, so you're going to want to save this to your desktop landscape ecology folder, and you'll call it something. And so, for example, the instructions for that lesson, the ArcGIS Pro Primer, you call it something like Pro Primer, and then your initials. And then you can keep this checked, create a folder for this local project. I'm just going to keep it here because I already have this in my landscape ecology folder, so I don't want to overwrite it. So I'm just going to throw it in here, and then I'll know that that's where it is. But you're going to want to put it in your desktop landscape ecology folder, and you click on that little folder and you navigate to where that is, and that's where you would save it. Okay, and so then you say okay. Okay, and it creates a project, and then this map is going to pop up eventually. Okay, cool. So here we have a nice world topo map and a hill shade that, in other words, it shows kind of like this topographic relief here, and you can see the green for, forested cover and so forth. And up here, we've got a ribbon, and if you sort of hold your mouse over it, some information will pop up about each one of these things, and you can click on these different tabs up here, and again, you can just hover over stuff, and you can kind of play around and familiarize yourself with the ribbons up here. So we start with this map. If you want to change it, you can go over here. This is called the table of contents, and it's map. And I just kind of click on it, and then I say, I'm going to call it map_1. Cool. Great. It's called map 1. Cool. This can be helpful if you're going to create more than one map in a project, which you will do in the exercises for today. So here we go. Great. Now let's play with some data. There are two types of geospatial data. There's vector data, which are points, lines, or polygons. And these include things like point feature classes. So like if you have point locations of, let's say, burrow locations of something, or tree locations. So you've got like latitude, longitude, coordinates of things. Those are points. So that's vector data. Or shape files. Shape files are usually for polygons. And we'll play with shape files later today. So that's one type. There's vector data. And then there's raster data. Raster data are grid-based data in which each one of the grid cells contains a value, usually a number value, that corresponds to like a given land use land cover type, or a soil type, or a vegetation type, or something. And you're already familiar with raster data because JPEGs and TIFFs and GeoTIFFs and so forth, they are raster data. So you have already inadvertently worked with raster data. So we'll be working with both of those throughout the semester. Today, let's start with vector data. So if you go under the Map tab, Add Data, Browse, and again, this is where I have it. I'll have to noodle around my file structure. Yours will be different. Yours will be in your landscape ecology desktop folder, okay? And ARC examples, okay? So there's going to be an ARC examples folder that you download from the Google Drive. It'll be zipped. You right click and unzip it. And then this is, okay, here it is, the ARC examples folder. And it contains a folder called CapRock. And inside CapRock, there are two .shp shape files, and then also another shape file, config US counties. And then this thing, see how it looks like a little grid? It's a .tiff. That's a raster data set. And it even tells you that's what this is. Okay, so let's go to CapRock. And I'm going to shift and hold. And that way it allows me to select both of these files. And I say OK, and it will add them to my map. Okay, cool. So you see this sort of peachy color here. That's the boundaries of the Llano Estacado, the plateau on which we live. And then this blue color, GIP, this is a map of different geologic features here. And if you want, you can turn off the underlying maps like that to kind of simplify it. Okay. So now let's look at these data. Let's look at GeoClip, for example. If I right-click on it and open its attribute table, this will open down here, and it tells me something about these data, okay? And so it says that there's, for example, 2,510 rows of data that you can see here. That's a lot. That's really cool. And you can see the types of data that are included, the area, the perimeter, the type of geology, their units, and so on and so forth. So that's pretty cool. So we've got here, 13 columns by 2,510 rows here. But let's say we're only interested in certain types of the geology here. I can make this a little bigger and you can see what we're talking about. So like water bodies and quaternary deposits and gneiss of age uncertain and so forth, okay? So notice how I've selected something. It becomes this turquoise color, okay? So let me sort of get out of that. If I click this, again, I can select a row and a column. Let me clear and clear. Okay, there we go. Click off of it. Okay, so now nothing is selected. Let's say we're only interested in, let's say, these quaternary deposits. So if I click on this, then they will show up. Hello. Notice how I'm using the scroll wheel to zoom in and out here, and I can move around and so forth. So see up here, these quaternary deposits, see how they turned that turquoise color? So if I scroll and I zoom in, you can see that, for example, this polygon right here is quaternary deposits. But that's not the only one. So if I go, okay, clear this, I go geology here, and I right click and I want to sort, it sorts them alphabetically. And so there's a whole bunch that have no assessment of their geology. And I scroll all the way down to quaternary deposits. Got to go to the Qs, elemental P, Q. Okay, cool. Anyway, there's a whole bunch of them. And I can be like, all right, let me highlight all of them on the map. And so I click on that first row. I scroll all the way down. There's a lot, there's a lot, there's a lot, there's a lot. Scroll, 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 scroll. Good heavens, how many are there? Let's go. Keep going, keep going, keep going. Gosh. Okay, gosh. Many, 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 many. And you're like, okay, this is very inefficient. Exactly. That's the point. I don't want to have to, then, hold the shift key down and be like, all right, here's a bunch of them, see how they pop up on the map. I don't want to have to scroll and do all that. ArcGIS can do it for me. And so let me clear this. And let me if I go back to here and I right click and I say zoom to layer, pop, it goes back to that original extent that we had. So I can actually select by attributes up here for this layer that I've got highlighted in my table of contents, select by attributes. And the input rows are that layer, GeoGlip. The selection type, we'll do a new selection here. And then you have this field that comes up, where I want this. I want the, let's see, it's the, what's the name of this? It's the geology, where geology is equal to quaternary deposits. And so I scroll down there and I say apply. There, it's already selected them. See how fast that was? It's so much faster than scrolling. Okay, cool. And I say okay. And let's say I want to save that layer. This is a separate vector data layer. I go over here and I right click and I say data and I export the features. And it will give them a default name here, but I don't want to call them that. I want to call them quaternary deposits. And again, don't use spaces, don't use symbols, don't use anything funky in your file names, okay? Notice how it's saving it. I called this thing Pro Primer NEM, and it's got this .gdb. That stands for geodatabase. So that's a collection where every file that's associated with this project that you're doing, that will be saved. You can save it outside of your geodatabase if you want. I just have to click over here to a folder and say, no, put it somewhere else. Put it on my desktop or whatever. But I'm okay with it being saved in my geodatabase for these purposes, okay? And so I say, okay. And it exports them. And you're like, I can't really see them. That's because these are highlighted. So let me clear all of this. And I will do that. And if I turn off GeoGlip, hey, you can see my quaternary deposits. Notice how it's kind of the same color. Let's make these a different color. Let's make them, so I clicked on the symbol over here and the symbology window comes up and I say properties. Let me make them purple. Yeah, and I say apply. Pow, they become purple. And if I turn GeoGlip back on, you can see where those quaternary deposits are. If I click and drag this file underneath GeoGlip, it disappears because GeoGlip is on top of them. It's on top of them in the table of contents, and therefore you can't see them. And so you have to actually click and drag and bring it up here, and now you can see it. So different layers. Okay, so this is an example of working with vector data with shape files. Now let's work with some raster data. I'm going to say insert new map, and it's going to pop up. Cool. And again, I'll name it something different. I'll just click over here, kind of click on it, and I'll call it map 2. I don't care, whatever. Great, now I've got map 2. I can go back to map 1. Hey, here's my stuff. Okay, here's map 2. And in this case, we're going to work with raster data. I'm going to turn off these base layers. And again, I want to add my data, so I go back to map, add data. I browse, and I'm going to have to noodle around and get it. We're going to go back to that ArcExamples folder that we had. ArcExamples, there it is. And we're going to go to this NAS 2013.tif. NAS stands for the National Agricultural Statistics Service. And the data that are going to come are from 2013. So eventually, they will load. And this little finger icon, you can see right here. Each one of these colors signifies a different type of land use land cover, especially with respect to agriculture. This little gray dot right here, that's Lubbock. And the red is cotton. And you can see all of the different colors over here. If I click on this little triangle, you see all of the different colors. Anything that is black is something that is not part of our region. It's part of NAS, but it's not part of where we are. And so if I turn back on my world maps and I scroll out, you can see where those raster data come from. So Texas and Oklahoma, New Mexico, and so forth. Okay. So I'm going to turn these back on, and turn these back off, excuse me. And once again, I'm going to right click and zoom to layer. Pow. Okay, great. Here we are. You're going to be working with data similar to these later on in the semester. In order to figure out what the different colors stand for, In the ArcExamples folder, if you actually go to that folder, you have to open it in like Windows Explorer, which is what I'm doing right now. Ta-da-da-da, ta-da-da-da-da-da-da, ta-da-da-da, ta-da-da-da. Notice how there's all of these other kinds of files, and you're like, oh, I didn't even see those when I tried to add them in ArcGIS. That's because some of these file types are, notice how like NAS 2013.tiff, you've got these other ones that are also called NAS 2013.tiff. These are accessory files that are sort of like teammates. This is the main one that ArcGIS knows, okay, if I do this one, this is the team captain and all the other members of the team will come along with it. Other types of files can't be read in ArcGIS, including this one. This, if I make this bigger, this is actually a type of HTML file. And if I click on it, it'll open it up in, for example, a browser. And of course, my browser's over in this window. Let me drag it over here. And this is what it is. It's the metadata, the data about the data about the layer that you're talking about. So it talks about where this comes from. Here's the code number. So corn is number 1, cotton is number 2, and so forth. Okay? These data are collected by the USDA based on satellite imagery. And so over here, again, number 1 is corn, number 2 is cotton, and so on and so forth. And so that allows you to say what these different labels mean. Okay? So let's zoom to this upper right corner. There's a lake here, and you can see these different sort of land use land cover types. If I click on one of these, like this hot purple color, it says, notice 27. That's the value here, color map 27. If I scroll down here, yep, there's that hot purple color. What is that purple color? If I go to this and I go down to 27, it shows that it's rye. Cool. So this is a big field of rye right here. It was grown in 2013. That's pretty cool. Now, these are raster data. You know that raster data, the grid cells, so how big are the grid cells? The metadata will tell you, but you can also find out just, by exploring. So let me zoom in, zoom, zoom, zoom. Here's one of these squares. That's a pixel, a single pixel right there. I can measure how big it is by going to the measure tool, measure distance, and I just kind of, this isn't going to be super, super precise. It's pretty close though. So it's about 30 meters by, try to be straight, Nancy, by about 30 meters. And in fact, that is what the data are. They're 30 meters by 30 meters. Cool. So that tells you what the grain size is of these data. So that's pretty cool. Again, if I right click, zoom to layer, we zoom back out to the full extent. Now you can use raster and vector data together. So let's say I want to add data. I want to go to Caprock and I want this Llano boundary. I say add it, please. Okay, here it is. It's on top because the layer is on top. If I drag it under here, it's going to disappear. So I've got to drag it on top, just like that. Okay. You can use this shape file, this blue shape file, as a cookie cutter. So let's say we're only interested in the land use land cover within this area. And I don't really care about what's going on out here outside of the Llano Estacado. That's just excess dough that I want to, kind of get rid of, right? And so what you can do is you can use GIS to do processes. And so, for example, if I go Analysis, Tools, and I say Extract by Mask, click on this. The input raster, that's the dough, that's this layer. And then the feature mask, that's my cookie cutter. So that's this layer. And then it gives it an output name, and you can call it something, different. I'll call mine NAS cookie. Sure. And you can give, I want it to be inside. I want to save inside the cookie. If I want to somehow create, something that's almost like a donut, and I wanted this to be the donut hole, then I would do outside. But we want inside. Okay, and then we say run. And this tool, when it finishes running, a green um, signal will come. If there's a problem, then there will be red and there'll be an error message associated with it. And just give it time. Okay, here's my green. Yay. And notice I have this cookie. Well, it's hidden under here. So if I turn this off, here's my cookie. And you're like, excuse me? Values 1 to 238 in grayscale? You just have to tell it. Yeah, we have categories for these different cookies. So if I click on this, this comes over here, and I want to say, hey, unique values, please. Here's my unique values. It picks a color scheme that's just wild, just crazy stuff. Let me turn off this lower layer. So here's my cookie. And it's got the right numbers. And so like 1 is corn and 2 is cotton. It's just that the color palette is just kind of crazy. And you can pick some different color palettes. And this can be really useful for depicting certain things. And also there are certain palettes that are more colorblind friendly and so forth. And so there's a whole bunch here you can just play around with. Let's pick this one, for example. And it's going to be these shades of aquamarine, and that's pretty cool, right? And you can pick a different one. They've got all kinds of neat ones. Come on. It's taken a while. Let's try that one. And it's going to be a color ramp. That's pretty cool too. You can see this is where Lubbock is right here. So, but anyway, it's like, wait a minute. I would really like to have the color scheme that hello, come back, come on. I really would like the color scheme that we had for this one, please. Well, there's a tool you can do for that too. So you say tool, and let me see. It's called something like apply. What the heck is it called? Apply symbology. That's the name of it. Yeah, apply symbology from layer. Bink. And so my input layer is my cookie, and my symbology layer is this. And I say run. And so give it a moment. Hey, there's my cookie, and it's the color scheme of the original cookie dough. If I turn my cookie off, notice how you're like, wait a minute, what's going on? Notice how it moves. Shouldn't it be exactly the same? Let me zoom in, and we'll play with that some more. Okay, so I turn my cookie off. I'm looking at the dough. And remember, my cookie's on top. Now I turn my cookie on. I don't see anything different. Cookie off, cookie on, cookie off, cookie on. Actually, I do see something right here. So cookie off, cookie on, cookie off, cookie on. It's just an optical illusion. Okay? You can have a little bit of a difference. Let me zoom back out to the layer. You can have a little bit of a difference if the boundary, if I turn on Yano boundary stout, this boundary, if it cuts through one of the squares, if it cuts through the majority of the square, the pixel, that pixel will be represented. If it just cuts through a minority of the square, that square will not be represented in my cookie. So you can get a little bit of weirdness around the boundaries, but this is cool enough. This is good enough, right? Another thing you need to be kind of aware of is that if I zoom back out to this, notice how it's kind of tilted. It's not straight. It's not like a nice, it's kind of tilted like this. That's because there are different, what are called projections. This is a flat map on a flat screen, but the world is round, is curved. And so anytime you try to represent the globular world as a flat map, there's going to be errors involved. All maps are wrong, in other words, because they are representing a globe as a plane. And different ways of doing that will have errors in terms of shape. Others may have errors in terms of orientation. And so these are called projections. That's different ways of projecting this globe as a plane here. So we can explore that in another exercise. So if I go up here and I go insert a new map, okay, and once again, I'm going to change the name of it. I'm going to call it map 3. How imaginative. Okay, cool. And now I'm going to add some data. Go back to map, add data. And I'm going to add this config US counties.shp. It's a shapefile. It's vector data. Excuse me. I'm going to turn off my base layers. Each one of these polygons here is a US county or parish in Louisiana, okay? And so here we have it. And notice how this map of the US is kind of stretched. In order to determine what the projection that is being used is, I right click and I go down to properties down here. And if I talk about you can noodle around with all of this. If I go to source and I'm talking about the spatial reference, the geographic coordinate system is called NAD 83. And the datum is the North American 1983. That's what this NAD 83 stands for. So this is a geographic way of projecting these data. You can look at the extent, you can see, the latitude, longitude things. You can look at the, the elevation, the metadata, and so forth. All right, so anyway, we've got NAD 83 right here. If I go back to map 1, just for fun, I can look at map 1, I can click on map 1, and I can say, what's its properties? And what's its coordinate system? It's NAD 83. Cool. The default that ArcGIS likes to use is called WGS 84 Web Mercator. There are many, many other ways of projecting this map. So if I go over here, and let me say I want to project it to ArcGIS's favorite projection. I go to Analysis, Tools, and I say Project. And here we have this, Project. And I say I want to project this layer, my contiguous counties. And then this is the output name that it gives it. Okay, fine, and you can save it someplace else, right? If I click on this little globe, this is where we have our choices of our coordinate systems, okay? And so you can talk about different geographic coordinate systems in, let's say, North America and so forth, okay, in the USA and territories. So we've got NAD 83. That's what we've got. Okay, that's fine. That's fun. Projected coordinate systems. So let's go to, let me see here. Oh, I can search WGS 1984. Enter. Okay, and so it's going to be one of these. Is it world? Is it continental? It might be continental. Yeah, there we go. Except this is Canada. That's not what I want. We love you, Canada, but that's not what we're looking for. World. WGS 84. Here we go. Mercator Auxiliary Sphere. This is the favorite flavor of ArcGIS. And so I say, hey, okay, let's throw it into this projection. And you say, okay. And it has this automatic transformation. It's a mathematical formula that it does. You don't have to worry about that. Just run. Let the tool run. And okay, project's complete. Let's change it to a different color. Instead of pink, I'll do this orange color and say apply. And you're like, I don't see anything different about it. If I go to properties here, okay, and I go to the source, the data source, and I go to the spatial reference here, there it is. It's in the projected coordinate system that ArcGIS wants. So there may be times when you'll see a change and other times when you won't. Let's take this whole map, for example. Again, if I say properties of the whole map, it's telling me I've got layers. The two layers are in two different projections here. One of them is in WGS 84. That's our orange one. And then another one's in NAD 83, and that's our pink one. And it tells me this is what we've got. And so the base layers that I've turned off, remember, those are the ones that ArcGIS populates by itself, and it's in its preferred favorite flavor. You're like, okay, I don't really want everybody to be different and stuff. So let me try. Let me do something different. Whenever you start a new map, so insert new map. There it is. Right click, properties. It's in WGS 84. But any data that get dragged into it aren't automatically reprojected. And that's exactly what we did. If I go add and I say Arc examples, hello, add my data. What did I do? I didn't want to add folder. I want to add data. There we go. And I say this. Notice how this thing, if I toggle it on and off, it stretched the base map. What ArcGIS is doing is called projecting on the fly. This base map right here is in that it's in that NAD 83, NAD 83 projection. Our base map is in 84, WGS 84. So it is causing things to look correct and look aligned on the fly. So that can be a problem in the future. So you're going to have to make sure that any layers that you're working with are in the projection that you're going to need. Okay, I don't need to be in this map. Let's go back to map 3 here. So here's my layer. It's in WGS 84. That's cool. Let's turn this pink one off. Okay, cool. Now what you're going to do is you're going to create a shapefile of your own. Let's scroll in near to Lubbock, and if I say right-click label, the county names will pop up. If I click on Lubbock County, it says, hey, there's Lubbock, cool. I can select different counties here. And so, whoopsie, don't need to do that. I want to, let me see, I can select by attributes. Or it's just going to be, easy, clear. If I just right-click attribute table, and this is all of the counties in the United States. Click on this, right-click, sort. Now they're all in alphabetical order, but again, this is all of the counties in the U.S. We want Lubbock and the surrounding 8 counties here: Lamb, Hale, Floyd, Hockley, Crosby, Terry, Lynn, and Garza. So you're just going to have to scroll down and select those. So for example, one of them is Crosby. That's the alphabetically first one, I think. Scroll. Crosby. I click on that row. Cool. The next one alphabetically is going to be Dickens. And so go to Dickens. There it is, right there. And you can hold the control key down and click on this, and notice how both of them are now selected. Okay. Next is going to be Garza. And what we're going to be doing is creating a shapefile that you're going to be using throughout the rest of the semester. And so you're really going to want to pay attention and do this carefully. There's Garza, hold control key down. There's it. Oops, I forgot about Floyd. Sorry, Floyd. Let's go back. Whoa, there you are. Okay, there's a whole bunch of Floyd counties. Uh-oh, which one is it? I don't know. Let me see. State. I have no idea. I don't know which one of these. So let me click on this one. That wasn't it. Let me unselect it. Again, I'm holding the control key down. Next one. That's not it either. 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 Finally, it's got to be you. And it's not. What the heck? What the heck? One of these is the correct county. Come here. Nope. And I've deselected my others because I didn't. There it is. Okay, so it's this one. It's state 48. Okay, so now I know. So now I've got to go back and I'm going to have to select the other darn counties. Darn it, but that's okay. Again, hold the control key down. Once you do that, come on. Whoops. Dickens. There you are. Okay, so remember, Floyd is county, it's a state FP 48. Okay, now let's go to Garza. There. Let's go to, wait a minute, I don't need Dickens. I don't need Dickens. Dang it. I'm sorry, y'all. The coffee has worn off on me. So let me deselect Dickens. I don't want that county. So I just go back to it because it's not one of the ones that's immediately surrounding Lubbock. We want Lubbock and these 8 counties. So I just, again, I'm holding the control key down and I click on it and I deselect it. Okay, sorry. So we want Hale, Lamb, Hockley, Lubbock, Lynn, and Terry. Jeepers, let's go. All right, Hockley. Hockley, there you are. Hockley. There. Hale. And, okay, which Hale is it? It's state 48. There. And now Lamb. Whoa. Lamb. Lubbock. And Lynn. And then finally Terry County. And notice how each one of these counties is outlined in turquoise. All right, where's Terry? Oops, stop. There you are. Okay, jeepers. Now I've got all my 9 counties. Great. I right click and I say data export features. And okay, that's my input layer. The output layer is given this automatic name. No, call it something different. I'm going to call it 9 counties, my initials. And again, you can save it outside of your geodatabase. You click on this folder and you can save it wherever you want to, okay? For the purposes of what I'm doing here, I'm just going to save it in my geodatabase because I already have this saved somewhere else, okay? So I say, okay. And it's running and it comes up here. Go back and clear this selection, close this, turn this off. There's my 9 counties. Great. Hallelujah. My export features was completed. And if you look, right click properties, the source in the spatial reference, it's in WGS 84 Web Mercator. Great. Each one of these, however, is a separate county. I want this whole thing to be one polygon. And so I want to dissolve the borders. There's a tool for that. So analysis, tools, dissolve. Dissolve. And I say, hey, my 9 counties, I'm going to call it, again, it'll give it a name. You give it a name. You can save it somewhere. You can dissolve on, whatever field in the attribute table, right click attribute table. You can dissolve on, object ID or whatever. Create multi-part features. No. No, we don't want multi-part. We want one thing. One thing. Okay, there. Notice I didn't even select any dissolve fields. I want to dissolve them all. And again, let's choose a different color. Let's choose that olive looking color. Cool. And if I turn this off, I've got my one solid polygon. It represents the 9-county boundary. If I turn this back on, you can see where they are. If I turn this on, you can see where we are. So this is the result. And this file, this 9 counties NEM dissolve that I created, that you'll create, follow the instructions in the primer. This is what you will be using in several upcoming labs. So today you have used ArcGIS Pro. You've explored its interface. You've used vector data in the form of shape files. You've used raster data in the form of the raster land cover data set, and you've used some of the tools that we'll be doing in the semester. So hopefully this little introduction will allow you to feel more comfortable in playing with this software. It's very powerful. It's a great skill for you to be able to have experience with. And so don't be afraid to, mess about and look at things and try things. You're not going to break it. Okay? So we'll be using it in various exercises throughout the semester here. I can stop my share here. And so hopefully now you feel more comfortable with ArcGIS Pro.